Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast with the pro sports doctors. I'm Dr. Dhokal.
I'm Dr. Glass.
Hey, that worked. And we are remote today for the first episode. It's episode 7. I am over here at SoFi Stadium in the parking lot. And Dustin, where are you at today?
I'm right down south from you in Orange County in my office in Lake Forest, California.
So I drove by you on the way up here then.
You did without saying hi. So we'll have to talk about that off air.
I drove by you very slowly.
Yeah, I know. Keeping track on that.
Yeah. Man, it's good to talk to you again. It's a little different not being in person. I always like to see you and, hang out and sit down and do this in person, but special occasion, Monday Night Football.
We normally have our little pre-game, a little fist bump, we didn't even get to do that. There we go. I like it.
Yeah. No, but it's good to be out here for Monday Night Football. It's always nice to play on prime time. And, we'll be playing in front of the nation on prime time tonight. And we got a good matchup with a couple teams that are battling some injuries, which we'll talk about. But before we got into that, I wanted to see how your week was and ask you what's good this week. What's the latest and how's life?
Yeah, it was actually a really busy, good week and weekend. My oldest daughter, Shayna, flew in from Tennessee to surprise my middle daughter, Allie, who turned 16.
Nice, big birthday.
Yeah, so it was a nice little surprise for her. And my youngest, Bree, had a nice triple in her game on Saturday. So, and all the sisters were there. It was a real special time having all three of them together again. So that was a lot of fun. So Glass girls were definitely represented this weekend. And after this, we're headed home to celebrate for the fourth day in a row my 16-year-old's birthday. So for the family.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of
I'm
good
sure
stuff.
I'm sure you got a family picture after that game.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we got a couple. So
nice.
Yeah. How about you? How was your week?
Well, that's a proud moment. A good moment. I think those are probably few and far between now that one girl's at college and life gets busier.
Yes, sir. Hold on to those.
Yeah,
moments.
for sure. No, life's good over here too. It's been good with work and good to make it down here. I put certain things on the calendar through the week that are either highlights or important tasks to do. And this Monday night, usually when we do this, like I've said before, is a highlight. Today is particularly cool. My wife and I drove down from San Diego to LA to watch the Chargers play tonight against the Broncos, like I was mentioning earlier. So, just happy to get through the week and through the weekend and have good outcomes with patients and be here to take a couple hours off. As I'm looking around, I see, people next to me cracking some beers, and it's kind of funny to see old jerseys, Merriman jerseys and Bronco jerseys. It's, going to a sporting event's kind of cool, no matter who you're rooting for. It's a different energy, as you know.
Yeah, for sure. You get a whole other perspective in the parking lot there.
Absolutely. No, it's good. So if you hear any music or loud noises, that's what's going on. Also, no comment on my background. Check it out. I got
I know you didn't do that, so
I did actually. I did do it
really?
myself. I figured it out, bro. I did it.
I'm very impressed.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to impress you. Before I talk about Russell Wilson, because I have a question for you about his injury last week after the Monday night game. They reported a little something, but I can't help but notice you're wearing the is that a LA Dodgers jersey?
Yes, it is. This was the team issued when I worked with the team, so I wear it proudly.
You should wear it proudly,
even though your boys took care of business over the weekend. Man, that was unexpected, to be honest. So, but I'm excited for them. It's been a long time coming for San Diego.
Well, it's very big brother, little brother, and it's good to have a series win. I don't think since I've been in San Diego, the Padres have won a playoff game at home. And I was saying that to a friend of mine who's a longtime Padre fan. I'm admittedly an A's fan and probably a Giants fan before a Padres fan, although, I have love for him for sure. And it flashed up on the TV that it was 1992 was the last time they won a home playoff game.
Dang.
And so I could almost hear the stadium where I live from. It was so loud, I'm sure, downtown. It was cool to see that stadium rocking. And I'm sorry your Dodgers lost. I know people on the team and on the staff, but I'm happy for San Diego. So I wanted to bring that up, but it
Yeah.
came a little earlier than I expected. You're rocking
Yeah.
the shirt still
Yeah.
with pride. So good for you.
Well, it's tough as you're watching, players, and you know what it takes to get there, and the
Yes.
backstories and the relationships and the emotions, and you root for them and you feel so bad when it doesn't happen for them, but end of the day, it is part of the game, and they move on and get ready for next season. But yeah, definitely a different emotions when you're watching it.
Yeah, I think they understand that better than any fans do, or even probably the staff, but yeah, it is, when you have a little bit of a personal relationship, sometimes you're like, oh man, it's not just, they care too, right? They care more, more than the fans do. So, yeah, so I'm happy for the San Diego team. Baseball wise, I know we talk a lot of football on this podcast because it's football season, but we'll follow that story as they play. The Phillies come to town here in a couple days to San Diego. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting matchup for sure.
So let me ask you, getting to the point, tonight, obviously the Broncos come to town, and big division game for us. As you know, being a Raiders fan yourself, last week when we were watching the game, Russell Wilson didn't do too well, or he didn't look like himself, I should say. And then after the game the next day, I believe it was reported that he had an injury of some sort to his lat of his throwing arm. So I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on that, if you saw anything that looked weird form-wise for him, and how that might affect his throwing motion tonight a week later. And then a third follow-up really is what the team might do to kind of prepare him to play if that lat is indeed injured.
Yeah, I unfortunately I didn't get to see. I'm a big Russell Wilson fan. So I'm really rooting for him. I followed that injury a little. I didn't see when it happened or how it happened or if they even reported on that. But knowing how much, and especially being on his throwing arm, how much that lat muscle is involved with that throwing motion, and uh, it, it's a big muscle. A lot of people don't realize where it attaches, how it attaches, how it comes all the way through, attaches, pulls that arm down. I'm lefty, so I should show righty, but so pulling that arm down, but it also comes down through the middle of the back, and then
Correct.
as the tendon, the fascia attaches to the pelvis, and then all the way down to the tailbone. So it's not just affecting his throwing arm; it's going to affect that whole chain all the way down, that whole fascia
Rotationally,
line.
everything.
Yeah, so that's what people don't realize. Oh, it's just his arm; he can work through it or stretch it out. But no, it's going to affect that whole mechanics. And if you don't have that rotational component, you're really changing the mechanics of your throwing. And he's going to have to get creative. Luckily, when he's on his game, he's good at getting creative. So
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of his strengths, right? Is to either slip away from trouble or find those windows, change the arm angle of his release.
yeah,
And, if he has some pain points, as maybe he changes up the way that he throws. What I'm curious to see is what his accuracy is like. He's typically pretty accurate as a quarterback, which was unusual last week to see some missed throws and see, just them struggle as a team. And so I wonder if today, the window's small in the NFL, right, Dustin? So something that's off by 6 inches or is a half beat late could be an interception or an incomplete pass. So that's in particular one thing I'm looking for, is to see if we can capitalize, we being the Chargers can capitalize on some turnovers due to some, inaccuracies. Maybe something's going on with the arm.
yeah. I'm speculating that arm's been giving him an issue prior to we even found out or heard about it, because he has not been himself since he's been to Denver, so
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so he was struggling. Everybody's wondering why, and I feel kind of better that it wasn't just reported that he's dealing with the laceration. I mean, he actually flew out to LA and had treatment done. He had some PRP or some biologics done on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more than just a little strain. Something
Right.
structural at that point is going on, not just mechanical. Usually when somebody comes in or we're trying to figure out, we look at, it's one of three things. It's either anatomical in nature, mechanical in nature, or systemic in nature. And mechanical, typically you're not flying out somewhere to work on mechanics. at that point.
Right.
And so the
Yeah,
fact
not mid-season, right?
no, not at this. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Off season, yes, you're flying. You're finding your guru to help you with your
sure.
mechanics, but not week to week like this. And so flew him out, and yeah, so that kind of gives us a little more confirmation that it was a little more structural, anatomical in nature. So
I wanted to get out here early enough to, record this podcast with you guys, but also maybe watch some of his warm-up throws, not in game, but just see how he's throwing the ball on the sidelines, not even while he's on the field doing his, warm up with his number ones or anything like that. I didn't get a chance to do that, but we'll see how he performs. I'm sure he's taking precautions or measures to be game ready. From the, clinical side of things, what would that be if, say, he had, a lat sprain or maybe something more serious like a tear or something?
as far as getting them ready,
Yeah, is there anything that you can think of, that you mentioned PRP, which I was going to bring up with another patient case of the week with mine. Somebody who had some success with PRP. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about. But yeah, I mean, on game day, is there,
yeah.
any
Well,
particular?
from a sports medicine chiropractic point of view, if I'm working on a guy and I know he's got an issue with his lat like that, I'm working on that mid back, because of the anchor points where the traps and the lat cross. A lot of
Right.
times that gets forgotten. Yeah, right below the shoulder blades, um, you know, kind of T8 through 10 region, mid low back or mid back. Low mid back.
Yeah.
That's an area where the lower traps cross and the lats cross, and there's a junction, kind of like a Venn diagram, where they cross. And a lot of times, unlocking that will unlock above and below. So I'm definitely focusing on that, focusing on his pelvis, trying to get that opened up to take
Released a
tension
bit.
off the distal area, or area above, and then checking the area above too. His neck, the lower cervical innervates the nerve, innervates that lat. So we want to, help
Correct.
give as much nerve flow to that. So from a performance standpoint, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at lower cervical, mid thoracic, mid to low thoracic, and pelvis
All
to,
three.
yep, to kind of unlock those hinges. And then I'm kind of doing some soft tissue just to more just really quick little active release passes on those lats to kind of turn them on. I'm not going
Right.
heavy. Nothing's heavy. It's literally just to facilitate those areas.
Just
And
almost like release it, right? Like release some tension out of it
yep,
if possible, because there are different, like you said, anchor points. And I like how you explain that high, middle, low in cervical, thoracic, and then the lumbar area, because that does V up into that whole area. And if you can get, if you think of it as a certain amount of length, sometimes I explain it to somebody is if that muscle is supposed to be 24 inches in length, well, if you can free up 1 inch from the hips, 1 inch from the mid back thoracic, 1 inch from the neck, shoulder, trap area, that's 3 inches out of 24. That's 1/8 of the total length. So without getting too nerdy, people can maybe visualize that that's okay. You're gaining length, you're going to gain range of motion there, and maybe ease off some tension on the actual injured area, perhaps,
yep, correct.
So just a little speculation there, but yeah, it should be good to see. Well, what other games of this week did you catch? Did you watch any in particular?
Let's see. I did real brief. Man, I can't even think of what it was right now.
Well, I
Yeah,
saw the Jets Packers game in particular, and we were talking about concussions last week, and we saw at least I saw something that I thought was well taken care of in the protocol that we spoke of, and that was there was a player on the team by the name of Sauce Gardner, really good cornerback for the Jets. He got hurt. They thought he had a concussion. He went out, went through protocol, ended up coming back in, so cleared the steps, was checked all the boxes like we talk about, and seemed to be okay, was so okay that he ended up making the game saving play at the end of the game against the Packers to seal the win. So, it's not always negative, right? Sometimes it's precautionary. You go through the steps, you get cleared, you might miss a play or maybe a series even, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. I'd like to see that. That was interesting.
yeah. Well, that's awesome because that's how the system should work, right? So So we got to put that check off one for the good guys right there.
Right.
Took care of the NFL, covered their butt, and it took care of the player more importantly. So, and
Yeah.
like the outcome, like you said, if he's held back for something that might not have been an issue, he's not able to help his team out and produce like he did. So
Yeah. Yeah. It was good to see, as far as that goes. Tell me about your patient cases this week. Anything jump out at you patient wise that was interesting or noteworthy?
mm, no, well, today I had a non-athlete come in and returned from a trip in a lot of pain. And she mentioned 3 times how stressed she was. So it kind of
Hmm.
just, I was laughing in my head because we just talked about it last week,
Right.
how much. And I looked at her notes, and I saw her a year ago for basically the same thing. And we know there's an arthritic joint in that area. And I just reminded her, hey, you have this issue. You didn't slip, fall, no trauma, no infection, nothing happened. You kind of just woke up with the pain.
Right.
So I said, kind of, let's walk through. What do you think? I said, because the first thing she wanted to know before she laid it on the table, what's wrong with me? I
Oh,
said,
I
we
see.
just spent 10 minutes. I said, you told me everything about it and you know exactly what's wrong with you. I said, you've told
Right.
me several times what the problem is. So tell me what do you think the problem is? I think my muscles are really tight because I'm stressed.
There
You're
you go.
exactly right. So how can I
Yeah.
help you? So then
Yeah.
we just went over, hey, how to stretch above and below the joint, how to get tension off it. Because the arthritis, I reminded her, like, the arthritic joint has been there for the last 12 to 15 years. And in order to even show up on an x-ray, it takes 12 to 15 years to form enough calcium,
For it
osteophyte
to be
formation,
visible.
yeah, to show up on an x-ray. But you weren't in pain for 12 to 15 years, and you weren't in pain last week. So, but the arthritis was there. So let's not blame the arthritis. Let's
Yeah.
blame your tension in your muscles. So just it was kind of a refreshing thing to remind her, that this is, something that she has control over. And so I gave her a couple stretches, and she was really happy to hear that, it's nothing serious. Her brain was going down into a bad place. And,
You kind
so
of slip down that, like, down that road, down that path of negativity. I think
yeah,
when you're not feeling good, especially, and if you're in pain, that makes it worse. And
yeah.
if you're, too in your head about it, then all of a sudden it hinders your progress with it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's something I think is not talked about enough, in the sense that we all have a low level of stress, right? And
Yeah.
we definitely, everyone's stressed, but not everyone's stretching, like, for instance,
Right.
or doing something proactively, like getting body work
Yeah.
regularly or whatever the case is. And I think old injuries flare up under that condition as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's good that you reminded her of that. And
well,
she kind of spoke on it herself.
yeah, and that was nice, the realization. But the realization came because we had talked about it a year before, so she knew it, So that's the
Yeah.
nice that she recalled it. But getting back to your point, and I reminded her, hey, stressors are in our life. I'm not saying that the stresses are necessarily bad, right? I said we need the stressors in our life. That's part of reality, so we know what the good things look like, type thing, right? But it's how our body responds to the stressors, right? We're all going to be dealt with stressors that cause tension and pain. And like, she's in some crisis modes right now where she can't avoid the stressors. So instead of worrying about that, worry about how you can control how your body reacts to those stressors. That's what we want to teach her, not necessarily, oh, don't stress. That's not the reality. To tell somebody not to stress is like telling a smoker that smoking's bad for them.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I know
it's nice
that,
in
but
theory, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you? What cases came through your door?
Well, I thought it was interesting that you mentioned PRP earlier with Russell Wilson, and maybe flying into he flew into LA, you said, to get some treatment. Yeah. So yeah, I had a patient who came in who has a knee issue, and it's similar to actually one of my family members who's a little bit older, who has a knee issue as well, arthritis. Basically, she went to the doctor, my family member that is, and they told her, well, maybe it's time to consider a total knee replacement. And so my patient who came in isn't very active necessarily, has had a knee replacement on one side, but many years ago, and it was moderately successful, and has knee pain on the other side, and was like, well, I think I should just go in and get the other knee done. And I was asking him, like, steps he's taken or what he's done differently, like let's talk this out before you just jump. To me, that's the last stage. If you've tried exercise, you've tried supplementation, you've tried different types of stuff, right? And so he wanted to jump straight to that. And so what I suggested to him was maybe PRP or looking into stem cell in that order. And so yeah, so let me ask you, what's been your experience with PRP? Have you had it on any joints yourself? And what's been your outcomes with patients with
Yeah,
that?
personally, I have not I've had the opportunity, but I have not done it uh, for any of them. I utilize several doctors in the area, especially having associations with the teams. It's big in the sports performance and injury management, world. So luckily, we have access to a lot of these doctors that do it regularly, and they fall under the category of those biologics, like we talked about. So typically, when a patient comes in and asks me about it, I first tell them, "Hey, we need to get a professional that can actually tell you," because typically how it goes is, "Hey, doc, do you think I need to get some PRP
Right.
or some stem cell or prolo?" I say, "Well, you know what?" I tell them, I said, "We really need to get you the professional that deals with those, because they'll be able to assess the area, because all the tissues typically will need a little different, substance.
Sure.
So we don't know if you're a candidate for prolo, PRP, or stem cell production, or stem cell. So let's talk to them and let them tell you which substance is the right one for your area, because cartilage needs one, joints, SI joints need a different
Meniscus.
type.
Right.
Every structure will typically fall into one of those categories where one of those three things will work better than the others in the research. So I've had good success with my patients that have had them. Prolotherapy, where they use like a sugar substance, I've had a couple people react negatively to those sugar.
Could you explain that? Because that's something that I've only recently learned more about. And I think when patients come in, they usually just, they're using buzzwords, something they've heard, more often than not, maybe they've seen a commercial or something, or
Yeah.
they've heard something through friends or social media. So could you break that down? How's that
Yeah.
different from PRP?
Keep it as simple as I can, because it
Right.
does get,
Just on a basic level.
yeah. So the Prolo has been around longer typically than the PRP and stem cell as far as the mainstream usage. So most people, I don't even know how many years ago, but that was the first thing that kind of came out where people were trying non-surgically to repair things, and typically we saw it a lot more in the knees. That's
Hmm.
where I was seeing it a lot more, and basically, and it would go against everything that um, my practice is based on. Basically, I work on getting inflammation out of joints and getting
Yeah.
the, restoring the function.
Calming it down. Right.
Yeah. And what Prolo does is it adds a sugar substance into the joint to create an inflammatory reaction to restart that repair phase of inflammation. So you're really
Interesting. Right.
trying to throw in an inflammatory storm there to recreate an injury. And so,
So does that not feel great then?
yeah, so sometimes, it does not, because you're going through, with inflammation comes the pain,
Correct.
the loss of function, the heat, all of that, the swelling, the pressure. So with that, at the micro level within the joint, but that joint's not very big. Like depending on what joint it is, there's not much room for error in there. Everything in
Sure.
there is for a perfect placement.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you add any little substance in it, it's going to be irritating. So, but the whole hope is that, once everything starts working, that it starts repairing some of that tissue again. So, so that's Prolo. PRP is where they take your own plasma and they spin it and get the platelets, and then platelet rich plasma, and then
Injected
re-inject
back.
it into the area.
So I've
So
had a little experience with that, which I'll briefly talk about. I had a
yeah.
torn meniscus on my knee from back when we played, and it didn't bother me so much. It mostly healed after a few months of discomfort. I worked through it, rehabbed it, but it would bother me when I would go on hikes, and I was trying to hike Half Dome in this particular year, and so I heard about PRP, and I had it done on my knee, and it took care of probably 90% of my pain and discomfort. It healed it. Make a long story a little shorter, and I went and did some aggressive hiking and I needed a second shot. And then that kind of took care of it. It was like 100%. And so I've been a big proponent of it in the right situation. It was really helpful to me personally when I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have to always live with this because I had for several years. So pretty good.
Yeah, that's good to know. I have a torn meniscus that I've been putting off, and maybe that just convinced me a little more.
Yeah.
That's good news. That's nice because
Yeah.
how many was that, a 6 injection thing or
I had 2 injections.
2?
Yeah. Just 2. Yeah. One medial, one lateral. And that took care of the issue.
What about
Yeah.
downtime? Let people know what the downtime was. A 72 hour, 48 hour?
Well, the first shot I had, actually, I was at work adjusting, and the clinical doctor there gave me the shot, and then I had patients, so I was like back adjusting right then, and I needed to take the day off at least. I'd say 24 hours just to like let it rest. There was a little inflammation, some fluid in there. It definitely felt a little boggy when I moved, but it was good after 24 hours. Continually got better, and for me, it was a big success.
Yeah, that's huge. No downtime, right?
No downtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to keep chatting with you. I know we can talk for a long time about several things, but I know kickoff's already started. I hear the cheering inside the
Yeah.
stadium, and I'm out here in the parking lot. And so I
Yeah.
want to wrap up just by asking you if there's any games that you want to watch next week that you're looking forward to watching. We're starting week 7. I know I'm going to say the home team here, the Chargers versus the Broncos, is the game of the week for me. But what do you say?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. I wish I would have kind of looked it up. Give me 3
Whoever
games.
the Raiders are playing, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to see how Justin Herbert, the quarterback for the Chargers, who has a rib injury, fares today. I'm interested to see how Russell Wilson, who has a lat injury, fares today, the 2-star quarterbacks. So it should be good to watch. I look forward to meeting you in person next Monday and having a little more lengthy of a conversation about this week's injuries and other patient cases and things that come. But I appreciate you making time so we didn't miss this week. This is important, and I'm glad we talked about a couple things. Any last thoughts on your mind?
No, just yeah, have fun at the game, enjoy it, take it all in, and I want to hear about it later.
Yeah, yeah, big division game. I'll text you on the way home, maybe let you know how
Yeah,
things are. But yeah, man, I appreciate the time and good to see your face. Be
you too, buddy.
better to see you in person next week. Got the little Chargers bolt here, so bolt up, guys.
Looking good.
Hopefully, we pull out the W, but I don't want to jinx it. So, much love. Always appreciate the time, Steve, and I appreciate you behind the scenes there.
Thank
And
you, Steve.
Dustin, we'll check in next week. Okay.
Sounds good. Have a good night. See you next week.
All right, bud. Take
See
care.
you.